My 29M wife, 28F, admitted that she cheated, and I feel so lost. Fast forward once more to recently. M still lived with us for going on 4 years. She's talked about finding her own place for over a year, but there were constant speed bumps pushing off her plans. My wife and I now had a dog, were advancing in our careers, and could easily afford the whole apartment ourselves. We had been waiting for M to move out and take over her space because, frankly, we were running out of room. And each time M would vent about some new expensive hurdle she would have to leap, my wife and I would share a knowing glance, meaning that the wait had again been extended. After a year of waiting, we were exhausted and nearing the end of our rope. Finally, we had the idea to give M a time frame for when we would like her to move out. 60 days seemed fair and doable, so we made plans to let her know the next day. M actually handled the news well. Or so it seemed. Encouraged by her own friends, she decided to take the petty route and made plans to move out over the weekend that my wife and I had planned an end-of-summer trip to the mountains. The petty part is that she told us 4 days before we planned to leave. So, not only did we have this big trip to prep for, but we also had to do everything we could to make sure M's things were accessible to those helping her move and safeguard our valuables to make sure nothing gets broken or lost in the process. Cool. An inconvenience, but if it meant that we would be returning to our own place in just a few days, make it worth the struggle. The trip, as it turned out, was the beginning of the end for my wife and I. I was starting to notice the writing on the wall, no matter how much I wanted to ignore it. Before I dive into it, I should first share a bit more about me and my own flaws that lead me here. Anxiety and depression are big struggles for me. My wife has always known and was accommodating whenever possible. However, COVID lockdowns made it much harder. My tolerance for social situations plummeted, electing to stay home as often as I could when we were invited out. After a while, she began being more vocal about wanting me to join her in outings. She told me that she felt abandoned sometimes and that she was sick of coming up with excuses as to why I wasn't with her. Unfortunately, although I heard what she was telling me, it took several times for me to get the picture. I suddenly realized that the only way for me to increase my social battery was to use it more. I would need to for the sake of our marriage. But as things go, my realization may have came too late to matter. The trip itself was a good time. We did a lot of really fun things together and saw a lot of cool things. But she seemed off. Present but distant. So, whenever we had free time and were looking for something to do, she would try to get me to pick something that I wanted to do. After a while of this, it sort of began feeling to me like she intended this trip as a final meal for the marriage. Like how one might spoil the heck out of a beloved pet the night before they need to be put down. I didn't want to spoil the mood, so I sat on this idea even if it ate me up inside. Returning from the trip went well. M had moved out most of her stuff and my wife and I were giddy with the excitement of what we planned to do with all the extra space. Besides our shared bedroom, we would each have our own room to do with whatever we please. Mine was going to be a space for my hobbies and hers was to be a meditation/reading/yoga room. We had a few hurdles to clear before we could get started, though, and most of it revolved around M and when she could finish clearing her stuff out. That was a month ago. It was a little over a week ago today that things started falling apart at a faster rate. I began hearing rumors claiming that M was bad-mouthing and blaming all her problems on me to anyone who would listen. Cool. Maybe I deserve it. I didn't want to stir the pot, so I kept my mouth shut. I did, however, speak to my wife about it and she reassured me that it wasn't anything to worry about. That M was just upset and that she would eventually get over it. That M genuinely likes me as a person and I should just let her vent. Fine, I'll try not to read into it, I guess. Later that same night, my wife wanted to go see a band play at a brewery and had convinced me to go. I'm trying to be a better partner, so I'm making an effort to go to things I was invited to. It ended up being a really good time. But this is when I learned about my wife's work event coming up. It was scheduled for this last Wednesday and she was complaining about the meeting format. She works in the booze industry, so of course it was a cocktail party and she was expected to try all these new products. She was worried about how she was going to get home without an Uber and she didn't think she'd be reimbursed for it. I reassured her, saying that I would be available to pick her up if needed, but to be safe anyway. Still, she didn't want to get roped into too much of the event and said she would try to leave as early as possible, hoping to be home before 7. As the night grew on and 7 came and went, I sent her a text asking if she was still okay. No response. I didn't want to come off as worried, even though I was, so I waited half an hour before trying again. She replies a few minutes later that she's fine and is bonding with some coworkers. Cool. At least she's not in a ditch somewhere. I reiterated that I was available if she needed or I can call her an Uber when she was ready. She said thanks, and that she had switched to beer so she should be ready to leave soon. That was at 9:30. Around 11 I reach out again asking if she's on her way. It's getting late and we both had to work the next morning. She responded with soon-ish. I said okay, but I'm getting sleepy but don't want to go to bed until you're home. The last text I received from her that night said, "Welp, I couldn't sleep last night without you but I did it." Fair. I had fallen asleep on the couch watching TV with the dog. She never sleeps well when it's happened before. I took my chastising and left it at that. But I would still stay up until she made it home. It's now 1:45. She's still not home. I decided to call her. No answer. I call again. Nothing. I text her and say that I think it's time to come home. I ask her to call me back so that I know she's okay. Nothing. I set a timer on my phone for 15 minutes to try again in case I fell asleep. The pattern repeats for an hour until I finally passed out, once again on the couch with the dog. I was awoken by my alarm at 7. It takes me a minute to pull myself together and then I hear the TV on in the bedroom. There she is, asleep in bed. Relief floods me, but so does anger. I calmly woke her and asked her what happened. She sleepily mumbles something about not being allowed to have her phone out on the casino floor. This was confusing for me because this is the first I had heard about a casino. I've only ever known her to go to a casino once before years earlier. Before I can ask anything further, she says that she's late for work and needs me to take care of the dog while she gets ready. I made a mental note to revisit the topic later that evening. The whole day I felt off about everything. Why would she do what she did? Why didn't she wake me when she got in? I did what I could to keep invasive thoughts at bay, but I couldn't shake it. That sinking feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. When she made it home that night, it took everything I had to not jump into it right then and there. I played it cool and tried to behave normally. I did notice, however, that she was avoiding eye contact and hardly said much at all. When she did speak, it was to inform me that she had a call scheduled with an old girlfriend who lives out of state, and that she was going to go on a walk while she talked. The call was normal a thing, the walk wasn't, but it was a nice day, so I figured that was her motivation. An hour later, she's back, and says that she has a couple tasks to finish up before she's free for the night. We had planned to watch a new episode of a show we like after that. When she was finished, she said that she needed to take a shower that night, so we would need to leave her time for it. I said that I understood, but couldn't stop myself from asking again about what had happened the night before. She said she would tell me after the show. Okay. We watch. I'm not really enjoying it because I can't focus, and she's obviously very nervous. As soon as the credits roll, she jumps up and says that she needs to go take her shower. I'm left waiting again and I'm not sure what to do. All these scenarios are playing over in my mind and I can't get over it. Finally, maybe another hour later, she appears and sits on the floor near me. After a few moments of silence, I look over to her and she sheepishly makes eye contact before looking away again. Understanding that I will have to pry a bit, I say, "Well, I guess I'm ready for you. I'm going to try my best to make sure everything is as accurate as possible, but honestly a lot of the event is pretty fuzzy in my memory because it all happened so fast and I was so upset. Wife, I'm sorry about last night. Pause. I had too much to drink with some co-workers. Pause and deep breath. And I cheated. In this moment I had every emotion all at once. I kept my cool though as to not escalate things into something regretful. Wife, we were all hanging out in the parking lot of the casino. I had been flirting with one of the guys, and as more of the group started to leave, he and I ended up making out. A lot. And I cheated. Me, I'm going to need details here. Wife, well, we made out in the back seat of his car, and I sucked his dick and he fingered me. Me, why? Wife, because I have a crush on him. And I have for some time. Me, okay. So what do you want? Wife, honestly, I don't think I'm in love with you anymore. Me, okay. Here's what is going to happen now. I'm going to go walk the dog. I'm going to take a longer route than I normally do. You should take that time to collect anything you might need for tomorrow. Please don't be here when I get back. I'm going to be discreet about all of this. I will not tell anyone what has happened for now. But if I hear of anything negative about me said by you, then I will go scorched earth. I don't want to, but I will. She said that she understood and started packing a bag. It's been just the dog and I since. However, I did lie to her a bit. I called a buddy and told him what had happened. He made sure I was alright and not planning to do anything stupid. It was nice to have that support. The next morning I sent her a text. Essentially, I said that I would appreciate it if she would give me a heads up if she needed to come by the apartment. That I understood and respect that it is her apartment, too. But a heads up would be appreciated. Additionally, I proposed that we set up a meeting in a few days after we've had time to process. She responded that she agreed to those terms and was free on Sunday, so tomorrow morning I will see my soon-to ex-wife for the first time since. I feel so raw. As though none of this is really happening and everything will go back to normal soon. But, I need to keep reminding myself that this woman hurt me. Yes, I have flaws. Yes, those flaws caused hardship many times. But I would never disrespect someone that I once chose to marry like that. I don't think that there's any coming back from this, and I'm worried about what she is doing to protect herself. If I had my way, it would be a non-contested divorce. Just get it done and over with as pain-free and quickly as possible. If things get messy, it'll leave both of us in financial ruin. I plan on bringing this up to her tomorrow, so everything right now is on pause until I can get a feel for this new environment I find myself. This is super long. I'm sorry. But if you made it this far, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I'm looking for support, suggestions, recommendations on how I should take my next steps. Anything you may be able to share. Thank you.